So far, in our investigation on the flat earth theory, we've seen NASA's huge investment in lying about the earth and space since its very shadowy origins. And then we've seen the huge campaign of disinformation from the mass media in order to discredit the flat earth theory, mostly by insulting and mocking all the flat earth researchers. And then we've seen the powerful hand of the Catholic Church and its dark motivations behind all this. Now here comes the fourth part of our investigation, inspecting the Torah in order to see what was really written about our world's shape and mechanisms. Now before to start, there's a couple of points I have to make. Now the first point is that you don't have to believe in the Torah in order to study it. You just have to understand it and verify the information it provides. Now in order to understand it, you have to understand how to read it. And this is where it becomes complicated. Because not only the Torah was written in Hebrew, which most of you guys do not speak, do not understand, but it was written in the purest form of Hebrew that even most Hebrew-speaking Torah students don't fully understand. Because the Tanakh, what you guys call the Ancient Testament, was written in a royal language, full of very complex allegories and very fine subtleties to protect its secrets. But there are ways to unlock these secrets, as I explained in our previous video in our other channel.
It is the most hermetic language ever given to man. However, there are ways to understand this language, but be careful.
And the second point is that, as we all know, the Torah was given to the people of Israel. But what most people do not know is that it was given to Israel for safekeeping, in order to be safe through time and to be revealed to the entire world whenever the world is ready. Now in Judaism, the Torah is called Torah Emet, which means the Torah of truth. And truth, Emet, is one of God's names. Now this being said, I believe that since the number of truth seekers and truth movements in the world is clearly growing, maybe the time has come for us to share with you what I believe was written to help us all. So here we are. Now, as you have seen in the introduction, the Torah seems to confirm what I call our 10 flat earth laws. First one, the earth is flat and it's not a sphere. Second one, the earth is stationary and is not spinning on itself. Third one, the Earth is not spinning around a faraway, much bigger sun, but the sun is indeed much smaller than the Earth and local. 4. The Earth and the planets and the moon and the sun are not traveling within space. The sun, the moon, the planets, the stars are traveling above the Earth. 5. There is no South Pole. The South is all around the Earth. 6. There is no gravity, and the seas are being held within high ice walls. 7. The Earth is not open to space, and there is a dome protecting the Earth. 8. The Earth is bigger than space. 9. There are no aliens in space, and the only superior intelligence is the true living God of Israel. Now 10. God's omnipresent promise to take his people from one land to a wider land, to a better land in the Torah, reflects how at one point God will awaken people, will awaken mankind on the shape of the world it lives in, and will remind us all that the earth is indeed his creation. Now there are three basic ways to understand how the Torah reveals all this. First, by reading the Torah literally, but correctly translated. 2, by logical deductions. And 3, by reading the scriptures sideways. Now, before to start studying how the Torah reveals all this, there are another couple of things you must know. First of all, the planet we live on exists for a very long time and held many civilizations before our own, who started 5,700 years ago. So 5,700 years ago started our own cycle of time and not the physical creation of the earth. Second, our cycle of time, our civilization, started in the middle of a previous flood that occurred 1656 years before the flood of Noah. And this is one of the reasons why the days in the creation started in the evening, and there was an evening and there was a morning. Now let me just show you how do we know all this using these three methods I just told you. So first, for the fact that the earth is much older, first of all, by reading literally, it's very easy. In Kohelet it's written that generations of men come and go, but the earth stands forever. It means what it means. It can have different meanings, but one of them is the fact that the earth is much older than all the generations of men that we do know. Now by logical deduction, check it out. When God takes Adam and places him in the Eden garden, the very word that describes that action in Hebrew is vayanecheu, and he placed him in the Eden garden. Now that very word is only repeated once in the entire book of Genesis to describe Lot being extracted out of Sodom by those two angels. Over there it's written vayanechu. It's a plural because over there it's like two angels. In the Eden garden is God. Now if this word is being chosen, is being repeated on purpose, because every word is very carefully chosen in the Torah. Torah is not a newspaper, it's not like a book. It's very, very precise. So if that same word is being repeated in that second story, is in order for you to understand that there is a link between these two actions, and probably between these two men. Now, in order to prove a fact in Judaism, you need 2 or 3 witnesses. And in order to make sure that the Torah wants you to understand that there is a link between Adam and Lot, or between those two actions, you need more than just like a word that repeats itself. Now, when we dig a little deeper, you know that in Hebrew, every letter is also a number. So Adam, which is Aleph, Dalet, Mem, has a value. The name of Adam has the value of 45 in Hebrew. Aleph is 1, Dalet is 4, and Mem is 40. And Lot has also the same value, 45. Lamed is 30, Vav is 6, and Tet is 9. So here is a second point, a second fact that allows us to think that there is a link between Adam and Lot. There were both of them taken, extracted the same way, and both their names have the same value. So that's important. Now the third thing that reinforces the fact that there is a very strong link between Adam and Lot, a secret link in the Torah because it's not openly, thought, is that if it is 2 angels that extracted Lot out of Sodom, when God places Adam into the Eden Garden, God is being named twice by 2 names, Hashem, Elohim. So here are 3 witnesses that tell us that, hey, there is a link between Lot being extracted out of Sodom and Adam being placed in the Eden Garden. And that allows us to think that maybe was Adam himself also extracted out of a civilization that was about to be destroyed or being destroyed. You understand? Now this is how the Torah demystifies itself. Now in the book of Yov, there's also a verse that says something like, do you remember out of immemorial days when Adam was put upon the earth? And here again, that verse makes the allusion to the fact that Adam was placed on the earth and not formed out of his soil the way we tend to understand when we read the text, literally. And now, by reading sideways, the very first word, Bereshit, which is translated in the beginning but means actually in the beginning of, forget about it, as an anagram which is Beshe'erit, which means in the leftovers. That means that when you read in the beginning God created the skies and the earth, you can also read sideways by reading in the leftovers God created the skies and the earth. So if there are leftovers, that means that there was a civilization before ours, something was broken, and there were like leftovers from something that existed before our time. This is how you read sideways. Now about the creation being in fact the end of a flood. By reading the text literally but correctly translated, you see that Elohim announces to Noah how he's going to bring the flood upon the earth. And he says, here I am bringing the flood, the flood. He doesn't say, here I am bringing a flood, but the flood. And this very small detail, in fact, indicates how the flood is a known thing at the time. How the flood is not something new, but it's something that is known, that already happened before. If not, it would have been written, here I am bringing a flood. No, bringing the flood, the same flood that there was before. That's one. Then at the end of Noah's flood, we see that God promises not to repeat two things he did. First, not to destroy again mankind the way he just did, and then not to curse the soil again. But the notion of the soil being cursed is only mentioned at the time of Adam, not in the time of Noah, except from the fact that Lemech, the father of Noah, mentions the fact that the soil is being cursed, but not at the time. It was referring to the time of Adam. So here it is. After the flood, you will see that God says, that's it, I won't repeat what I've done now and what I've done at the time of Adam. This is thin, but it's here. Okay, now by logical deduction. If you see that when Noah comes out of the ark, Elohim repeats the order that he gave to Adam, if you see that he tells Noah to multiply and fructify and fill up the earth, exactly how he said it to Adam before him, so then you can make a link in between Adam and Noah coming out of an ark. This is one. Then, when you analyze the creation, what else can it be if it is the end of a flood? You see that the waters from above and from below are being separated the way they were separated in the time of Noah after they were mixed up. Then you see the waters going down, calming down, and then you see the mountains appearing in the creation, exactly like in the Noah's time, where the waters go down and you see the peaks of the mountains. You understand? So all this in that creation is not really a creation the way we can understand it. It's more like a reorganization of a big mess, and apparently the end, the clear end of a previous flood that occurred 1656 years before Noah. Now there is also another clue, important clue, is that in the very beginning of the creation you see that the Spirit of God was on the surface of the waters. And this very expression, al pene hamayim, on the surface of the water, is only being repeated after that to describe what? The ark floating on the surface of the waters. So this is again a fingerprint here, secretly linking the Spirit of God on the surface of the waters to an ark full of people on the surface of the water some 16 centuries later on. Now there is in Judaism a very well known and very respected Jewish scholar called Rashi. And Rashi comments that when they built the Babel Tower, they in fact had the intention of building a tower in order to survive a next coming flood. And he says in his comment that people believed then that a flood was coming every 1656 years on earth. So if that's true, how could they know that if a first flood did not occur exactly at the time of Adam, which was exactly 1656 years before Noah's flood? So this confirms a little bit what we understood through logical deduction. Now by reading sideways, I come back to that word Bereshit, which hides Besherit, as we just saw. And if we keep on making the anagrams of the two following words, we see that the scriptures actually hide Besherit Ayam, Barael et Hashamayim ve'et Haaretz. In the leftovers of the sea did God create the skies and the earth, which certainly refers to the fact that out of a destruction by the waters, but by what was left within the sea did God reorganize and recreated the world. Now this reflects itself in the story of the people of Israel that crossed the Sea of Reeds, what people call the Red Sea. It is said that when they crossed it and they saw Egypt dead on the shore, and it is said that the riches, the wealth they took out of the sea at that point was even greater than the wealth they took out of Egypt. So we see there is a little bit of a reference here to the fact that that story and that history repeats itself slowly later on, and this is how you can understand the very foundation of our civilization. Okay, so now let's inspect the Torah to see how it establishes those 10 flat earth laws, as we call them. Okay, as we saw in the trailer, the very first verse of the Torah secretly mentions how God created the seas, the skies, and the earth within a plateau. Now the word plateau in Hebrew, in the Torah, is mishor. We're talking here about regular plateau, like a top of a mountain, as described many times in the Torah. Now, in this particular anagram, the word yosher is being translated as a plateau, because yosher in Hebrew textually means straightness or rightfulness, and in this case, by referring to the shape of the earth, it cannot be translated correctly by straightness. In a straightness God created. No, it's in a plateau, and in fact it's been confirmed by the fact that the very word mishor, which is officially the word for plateau in Hebrew, comes from the contraction of mishor, which means mi yosher. That means coming from a plateau, which means that every small plateau on earth is in fact but the reflection of the main shape of the motherland, which is itself a big plateau. You understand? So those are subtleties of the Hebrew language you have to understand. Now God is also called El Yeshurun, the Lord of Yeshurun, which represents Israel, or the final Israel, the final land. And Yeshurun actually reflects Yosher, which means that actually one of the name of gods reflects his title of the Lord of the Plateau. You understand? El Yeshurun. Now for those that have a problem with the fact that this first anagram replaces the name of Elohim by that of El, know that in the Torah it is confirmed many times that El is the one that created the world, and that El is indeed Elohim. So there's no problem with this. Again, also with those that have a problem that this anagram adds up the fact that the sea was created with the skies and the earth. Again, the Torah mentions it all over the place that at the beginning the seas were also created, the way we see it in the creation, later on. So that's no problem. So now if you accepted the fact that the creation indeed started at the end of a first flood, and that you see that at the time of Noah, the ark is settling down on mountaintops, also on a plateau, on the mounts Ararat. It's not said on one mount, on the mounts. That means it's a plateau, it's a wide area. So it is normal that our creation, the creation of our civilization, starts also into a plateau. Now, as we saw in the trailer, when the promised land is described as being a land of wheat and barley and pomegranates and figs and all that, we saw that behind this verse there is a secret verse explaining how the earth is flat, quiet, and how it is a star that gives its shape, that gives its landscape. Now, all over the Torah, you can see that it is mentioned how God calms the earth, calms the seas, many times, in many different places. So this confirms also the fact that the earth is calm. Now check it out. The fact that that secret verse, that anagram, secretly mentions how it is a star that gives the earth's landscape is confirmed by the very name of earth in Hebrew, which is Eretz, because Eretz in Hebrew is the obvious contraction of two words, Or, Ratz, Eretz. Or is light and Ratz is run, a running light, because only a running light above the earth can give its shape, can show its landscape. You understand? Okay, the third thing that helps us understand that the earth was flat right from the beginning, it is when the earth is being described as being the field in the Torah. You remember at that point where it is written that all the bushes of the field were not there yet, and that all the grass of the field was not growing yet. Well, a field is a flat plain, and here we're talking about the earth. We're not talking about like a special field, I'm talking about the field. And it's written the bushes of the field, again, not written the field bushes or the field's grass, but the grass of the field. So here again, the place where everything starts is indeed a flat plain, it's indeed a field, so it's flat. And actually, the very words in Hebrew describing the fact that at that time the bushes of the field did not exist yet in the earth also hide a secret verse saying that at that time actually the earth was a flat mountains field, as you can see on the screen. So now the fourth thing that helps us understand how the earth is flat is to be found in the book of Yov. The book of Yov is helping a lot, to understand the shape of the earth and its mechanisms. So in that book it is said that God stretches a straight line upon the earth. So it is very simple to understand how the earth can only be a flat plane in order to have a straight line being stretched upon it and not around it. So again, the word kav in Hebrew means a straight line, as you can see that word in ikavu hamayim. Ikavu hamayim, that means so the waters can come down and be leveled up. Or in mikveh hamayim, you can see kav in the word mikveh. Mikveh hamayim describing the seas, but mikveh being a pool for ritual bath in Judaism. So the seas are described as a pool of seas, meaning that everything there is also flat. So the word kav in Hebrew reflects, flatness, a straightness. Now the fifth thing that helps us understand that the earth was flat is in fact a commentary from Rashi, that famous Jewish scholar, on a verse to be found in the book of Yov, where it says that God stretches the north and hangs the earth above emptiness. Well, over there Rashi explains how the earth actually is carved, is built upon a plateau, and he uses the word plateau specifically. So this is another little clue that confirms all that. Now number 6, what helps us to understand that the earth is flat is a very controversial verse that says that God sits on the circumference of the earth. And that verse is often purposely translated as God sits on the globe of the earth. It's so stupid. A hog in Hebrew is not a globe, hog is a circumference. Even the word hagura comes from hog in Hebrew. Hagura is a belt. Now that very verse is also commented by Rashi, which confirms this, that this talks about the circumference of the earth. By the way, that same word hog is later on also employed to talk about the circumference of the skies and of the seas, because everything is above the earth, and at the very basis of the skies and the seas, there is a circumference. So again, the hog הארץ means the circumference of the earth. That means the periphery of the earth. And Rashi even described the hog as referring to a compass. So that's also again reinforce the idea that hog is the circumference of a flat plane, a flat surface that can be round, that can be like no problem, like a plate is round, but not the globe. Nothing to do with the globe. So number 7, what helps us understand that the earth is flat is very simple. It's also very known from most flat earthers, is the fact that in the Torah the earth has edges. When it is written that the earth has limits and edges, that means of course that it is flat, because if it was a globe it wouldn't have any edge, because on the globe there is no edge. Okay, that is basic logic. The 8th thing is that the very notion of a flood proves that the earth is flat, because again water cannot be contained on a bowl. This is basic logic, basic intelligence, to understand that water can only be contained into a flat recipient, or something that can receive it, but not a globe. And sometimes I realize how absurd is that notion of a globe, of the earth being a globe. And when we think about it, it's like how stupid that is. How stupid that is to enforce that idea to people. And what's funny is that there's no mention of a globe in the Torah. A globe can be seen as a ball. There is a word for ball in the Torah. It's called kadur. And the only reference to something as a sphere or as a ball in the Torah is actually when it talks about shaping the cloth of someone, Shivna, I think, as a ball, and that's it. There's no reference of an earth being a ball or a globe or a sphere. This doesn't exist in the Torah. There's not even one example, according to what I saw. I didn't maybe see everything, but there's no example. So that's funny. Okay, 10. Now there is a verse that says that God flattens the earth. So here, no comments. Okay, that speaks for itself. But that same verse keeps on going and says that God gives a soul to those that are on it, and a spirit to those that walk in it. So here there are two kinds of people on the earth and people in the earth, but no mention of people around the earth. Okay, 11. There is a verse in the book of Isaiah, that says that at one point in the future, every hill, ravine, crooked terrain will be leveled as a plateau, and that even the mountains will be flattened as a chain of fields. So this is very interesting, because it seems that it refers to the future times, where at one point the glory of God will be recognized, will reveal itself by the fact that people will see the earth as the way it is. That means as a flat plateau, as a flat plane all over the place, and not a globe anymore. So this has to be also, of course, studied a little deeper, but this is what appears, when you read the text. Okay, 12. Now again, the book of Job helps us understand how the earth is flat by saying that God's dimensions are wider and longer than the earth and the seas, which means that if the seas and the earth have length and width, that means that of course they cannot be shaped as a globe, because at that point the globe doesn't have no width and no length. That's very simple to understand. So in conclusion, we see that there's a lot of allusions to the fact that the earth is flat. But what's funny is that there is nothing, almost nothing, I didn't see anything that proves the contrary, of course. Okay, now about the earth being stationary, not spinning on itself. We just saw that the earth is described as being calm, quiet, all over the place. So that also refers to the fact that it is indeed stationary, not moving. It's a very nice way to put it. We also saw that the earth is described as standing forever. So that also reflects the fact that the earth is stationary and not spinning around itself or anything else. Now there are other couple of verses that confirm those facts, that the earth is either standing or either still and quiet. Now behind the image that we are given in the Torah, that the skies are like God's throne and that the earth is his footstool, also we are being explained that in fact the earth is indeed stationary, not moving and not spinning, just the way a footstool cannot spin and cannot move. If not, it couldn't be a footstool, right? Okay, now about the fact that the earth does not rotate around the far away and bigger sun, and that in fact the sun is indeed local. So the first thing that comes to mind is that, of course, it is clearly written in the creation that the sun and the moon, were put within the dome above the earth. So of course the sun can only be local and not far away from earth and not bigger than earth. So you may remember that at one point Yahushua stops the sun, and even though it can be interpreted that the sun stopped at midday or at noon, actually in Hebrew it is written that it was standing in half the skies, not in half the day or in midday. You understand? So that's also an indication that the sun is indeed local, above the earth, and much smaller than the earth. Now the book of Kohelet also explains how the sun does shine, does set, and in that order, in fact, it does breathe, but it does all this in his own place. That means he has a house, which is of course the skies, which is the dome above the earth. So again, here's an indication to tell us that the sun is indeed local and not like far away in outer space. Now the very following verse is a very important one, and actually it proves many things. It is the verse that says that in fact the sun goes around the north and along the south. You see, that verse is usually purposely mistranslated as going around the north and around the south. No. It says in Hebrew, it goes around the north and along the south, which means that it doesn't go around the south, it just like walks along the south. And this clearly establishes the fact that the south is all around, and that of course the sun again is local, much smaller, evolving within the earth system, within the dome. Now about the very expression under the sun, which is to be found in the book of Kohelet, also indicates how the sun is local and above the earth, because it's not written around the sun or on the other side of the sun or under the sunlight, because even though the sun is rotating above the earth, everything on earth is under the sun. Whatever, even if the sun does not appear, it's like, positioned under it. So at that point it also confirms that the sun is local and not in outer space and not much bigger than the earth. Now there is a very important statement about the sun in the Torah. it is written ואין נסתר מרמתו, which means that nothing can hide from the sun's heat. And this is very important because it proves in itself that the sun is indeed located within a dome where its heat can be kept upon the earth. Because even though you can hide from the sunlight, because at night the sun rays do not reach you, you cannot hide from the sun's heat, which is all over the place even at night time. And this confirms how stupid is the idea of believing that the earth is a globe and that the sun is a big globe on the other side far away from earth. Because if it was true, then the dark side of the earth will be instantly frozen. But no, now that there is a dome upon the earth, upon the flat earth, so even though the sun is not above you directly, you still receive its heat. So you see, this is the power of Hebrew. With 3 words, ve'ein nistar miramato, you can understand all this. Now there is something very small that confirms what's obvious for all of us. But anyways, I want to share it with you in order to give you an insight of how to investigate in the Torah. You see, as we just saw about the fingerprints in the Torah, the very action of Elohim, who puts the sun and the moon into the dome, is being described by the words "Vaiten otanu," and he gave them to the dome. And these 2 words are only repeated once in the entire book of Genesis to describe Pharaoh that gives the wine waiter and the baker to the prison. That means that he places those 2 guys into a jail. So again, if these 2 words are repeated in the Torah, it means that they establish a secret link between those 2 actions. The action of God putting the sun and the moon into the dome is like the action of Pharaoh putting the wine waiter and the baker into jail. So out of this, what we can draw as conclusion is that indeed the sun and the moon are also being placed in some kind of a jail. That means into a closed system. No way out. Okay, now about the fact that the earth, the sun, the moon and the stars do not travel in outer space. We just saw, again, that the sun and the moon and the stars are in fact forming what we call space, but within the dome. And the role of all these, celestial bodies is to serve the earth, to shed light upon the earth, and to be a reference for times for the earth. So indeed, they cannot travel in outer space because here's the outer space. You understand? So that's one thing. Now, Joseph's dream is important because I don't know if you remember, but at one point Joseph is going to tell his brothers that he dreamt about the sun and the moon and 11 stars bowing down to him. Well, in fact, in that dream, Joseph is indeed the earth. As Yaakov is going to confirm, oh, did you think that me and your mother and your brother are going to bow down to you towards earth? That means face to earth, but also towards earth. That means toward you, that you are the earth. So actually in that dream, you can understand that the Torah also gives us an insight about the fact that the earth is central in the universe, and that the sun, the moon, and the stars, the planet, because in Hebrew stars and planets is the same word, kochav, actually are evolving around the earth and serving the earth. So here again, they cannot just travel in outer space because the outer space is inner space. The outer space is within the dome and made to serve the earth, and not to travel into a different space that does not exist in the Torah. Okay, now think with me. If you know that the sun, the moon and the stars were designed in order to shed light upon earth, but also to act as instruments of time. And if you know that light itself is also a time in the Torah, because Elohim created the light and he named the light day. And there was an evening and there was a morning, day one. So if you know this, you are allowed to think that what you believe is space is in fact time. And that when you look up in the stars at night and you look into the depth of what you believe is space, you in fact look into time and not space. And this may be one of the reasons why you see how space and time always dance together in the Torah. And many times when you believe you are reading about a space, about a place, you are actually reading about a period of time. And I'm going to give you 3 very clear and powerful examples that prove this. First of all, when Moses goes up to the Mount Nebo and sees the land and sees the earth all the way to the last sea, Rashi tells us, do not read the last sea, which is Yam in Hebrew, but read the last day, which is Yom in Hebrew. That means that when you believe that Moses sees far away within space, in fact he sees far away within time. So here's the first example in the Torah where when we believe that it is written about space, it is in fact written also about time. That's the first example. Now the second example is to be found when the people of Israel are leaving Egypt, because it is mentioned over there that Israel went from Ramses to Sukkot, from one place to another place. Now it is also mentioned in that passage that the people of Israel left Egypt after 430 years of bondage. But what's interesting is that the very value of Ramses, the place they are living from, has also the value of 430. Ramses in Hebrew is 430. And here again, it is written that they are living after 430 years of bondage. So what's interesting for us now to understand is to see if maybe Sukkot, the name of the destination of the other place, also refers to a period of time. And indeed, because Sukkot in Hebrew is Samech Chav Tav, which is 480, and when you read in the Tanakh, you see that it is exactly 480 years after the exit of Egypt that the Temple of Solomon was starting to be built. So it is stated like this. So again, as you read in the Torah that the people of Israel went from one place to another place, from Ramses to Sukkot, actually you are being told that they are living from one period of time to another period of time. You see, that's the second example. So now it's very important to understand Hebrew in order to investigate the Torah, because you see what you guys call the tabernacle, that tent that they had in the desert. Well, in Hebrew it's called Ohel Moed, which is a tent of time. A tent is a space, and Moed is a period of time. So here we have the notion of space-time, right in the middle of the sons of Israel, which actually are positioned a little bit as some form of a living calendar, but we're not going to go deep into this now. So you see the notions of space-time and space becoming time and time becoming space is omnipresent in the Torah. So again, all this to confirm the idea that maybe what we see on the outside, what we believe is space, is in fact time. Makes sense, no? Now about the fact that the earth does not have a south pole, and that the south in the earth is in fact the outer limits of the earth, the circumference of the earth. So I'm going to bring back that famous verse in Kohelet that states how the sun goes around Saviv, the north, and along Olech el Darom, along the south, and not around the south. And this verse proves that in fact the sun cannot go around the south because there is no such thing as a south pole, and the south is all around. You understand? So this is one. Another thing is that these very words, Olech el, to describe the sun that goes along the south, the Olech el Darom. Actually, these two words are only repeated in the Torah in order to link the fact that the sun goes along the south and the fact that everything goes to one place. Like the book of Kohelet, again, that says that everything goes to one place. Akol olech el makom echad. And out of these fingerprints, olech el, you can link then the south to that one place where everything goes, which is normal, because if you think about it, if the south is indeed the perimeter of the earth, so everywhere you go straight, you're always going to go south. Everything goes to the south. You see, you can take it, however you want, but this is the truth. You can walk on a straight line and you're going to always end up into the south. So again, here Kohelet very wisely indicates how indeed the south forms the entire periphery of the earth. And in that sense, when you see that Elohim in the creation orders the waters to be leveled to one place or into one place, then you can imagine how at that point the waters were leveled and formed themselves the south, the surroundings of the earth. Maybe they froze at one point, forming the south, I don't know. But it is very important that the fact that the waters were ordered to calm down also hides the fact that they were ordered to form the south, to form the limits of the earth. Very important. Now the book of Yov again here helps us to understand how the south actually enwraps. When it is written that the right hand, Yamin in Hebrew, enwraps, it means that the south enwraps, as Rashi confirms, in his commentary. So here we have the idea of the south that indeed surrounds something, enwraps the earth. Now again, the book of Yov helps us to understand how in fact the south is cold, not warm, and that the south wind is so cold that if it wasn't for the east wind, the eastern wind that cuts it off, the entire world will freeze to death. You understand? So this is also very important to confirm that the south is actually cold. Now about the fact that the earth is actually surrounded by high ice walls holding the seas. Again, the book of Yov is helping us by openly mentioning the fact that there are sea barriers. When it says, have you ever reached the sea barriers? So here the word nevachim, that we translate as barrier, is in fact an enclosure. Like we can see when the people of Israel are being enclosed, trapped when they come out of Egypt, between the army of Pharaoh and the sea behind them. So here again, we have a confirmation that the seas are actually held within high ice walls. Now the second part of that verse also has a secret anagram indicating the presence over there of high walls, very cold high walls, as you can see on your screen. Now again, as we just saw before, the seas in the creation are described as being a pool of waters, and the word for that is mikveh hamayim, and mikveh in Hebrew is a pool for ritual bath. But the fact that the seas are described as being as a pool of water automatically indicates that the seas are in fact enclosed into walls, just as a pool is. Okay? So now what's interesting is that in the Torah, when the people of Israel leave Egypt to the desert and they cross that sea of reeds, actually they cross it frozen, because the sea actually became frozen, because it is said that the waters were standing as walls from the left side and the right side, and the only way the waters can stand as a wall if they are frozen, which Moses confirmed, in his song. He says that the water were frozen. So when also the people of Israel enter the land of Canaan, so the waters of the Jordan River also freezes, stands on one side. So you see the notion of crossing from one land to another, crossing the waters, is always linked in the Torah with frozen waters, frozen high walls of ice. You understand? So this is very important, because it indicates that at one point the limits of the lands are indeed made of high walls of frozen waters. Now check it out. The very anagram of ikavu hamayim mitahat hashamayim is yakumu hamayim tahat hashamayim, which means that when you see how the waters are being ordered to level up into one place, which is also referring to the south, as we just saw before, actually you can read how the waters were in fact ordered to rise under the skies into the south, into one place, meaning to transform themselves into the south by rising up and solidify. Now, it is very important to understand Hebrew, because the word El in Hebrew, El Makom Ehad, to one place or into one place, in fact can indicate that something can be transformed into something. Like you see later on, when it is ordered to the people to take the ark and transform it into a chariot, it is written El Agala and not Al Agala, which will mean on the chariot, like it is often mistranslated, that they put the ark onto a chariot. That's not true. It is written El Agala, which is to transform the ark itself into a chariot by placing wheels or whatever. You understand? So again, this here indicates how the waters at that point were ordered to rise up and to form these high walls that represent the south borders as we believe we understand it today. Now this is confirmed by the book of Psalms, which says that indeed the waters in the creation were gathered into ice walls, into big high walls. And Rashi also confirms it by commenting that verse, that indeed the seas were dressed up as ice walls, high ice walls in the creation. And again, the book of Job also confirms it by saying something like, am I the sea or crocodile that you put me into an enclosure? Also revealing the fact that the sea is indeed enclosed into high walls. Now later on, the book of Job also confirms how God, who spread the skies, also walks on the sea heights. So how can sea has heights like if it's not talking about the walls of the sea that are high, surrounding the sea. So that's also another clue that confirms all this. Now, in Hebrew, the word for doors is delatot, but when you see it written delatim, it refers to a high doors, very high gates that can be seen into a high walls surrounding the city or whatever. And now again, the book of Yov explains us how the sea was poured into these high doors there, into this delatim, giving us a clue that in fact the earth is indeed surrounded by ice walls that hold the seas, but also by the fact that these walls might have some passageways, some gates, open or closed, actually maybe closed, but we never know. So that's important. Now, as we just saw before, in the book of Yov, God asks, have you ever reached the sea barriers? And again, he's asking the same question about something else. He says, have you ever reached the treasures of the snow and hell that I put there in the times of distress, back then? So here in the book of Yov, there is a link being made between the ice walls, those sea barriers, and eventual treasures, wealth, or big secrets that are being in fact held within these walls or beyond these walls. Very important. Now also what's important to understand is that here Rashi refers to these treasures as being held from a long time, but only to be uncovered at the end of times and during the war of Gog and Magog. So that gives us a first clue, a first indication how important is that notion of flat earth and dimensions of the earth and those eye walls, because it might be at the very center of what we call the war of Gog and Magog, or the last big war on earth, which is going to be a war about knowledge, actually. So that's another small clue that helps us understand about the importance of this entire flat earth theory. So about a dome protecting the earth, well, we don't have too much information about that dome. The first thing we can understand is that at one point in the creation, it is written that it was made to separate the waters from above and from below, and therefore then above the dome, or up high in the dome, somehow there are waters. And it's a matter of fact that in Hebrew the word for skies is shamayim. The very word sky, shamayim, who describes the dome, because the dome was named shamayim, actually is a word composed of two words, which are sham, mayim. Over there are waters, shamayim. Just like for the sun, it is composed by sham esh, which means over there, fire. Over there is fire. Shemesh, sham esh, shemesh. So if we understand that above the dome, or at a certain point up high in the dome, there are waters, so that can give a credibility to all these images that have been shot of those stars looking like lights, into water like this. Nothing to do with the pictures that the NASA gives us, about the stars and the planets. So that's one point about the dome, that is surrounded somehow at one point by water. Now Rashi again helps us to understand about the dome by saying that actually, check it out, the thickness of the dome is like the distance between the earth and the skies. You imagine if the dome is as thick as the distance that there is between the earth and the skies. Now, I don't know if you heard, but I've heard that at one point in the 50s, governments over the world, like Russians and Americans, they tried to have the nuclear explosions up high in the skies, and they called, in America, they called that Operation Fishbowl. And out of this, most people deduct that maybe they tried to break that dome, you know, that fishbowl there that's above us. So if they knew that, they wouldn't even have tried, you know, to do this, because it wouldn't do nothing. You know, it's that thick, it's unbreakable.
And it may be hard to see tonight, but we are all standing under a glass ceiling right now.
Now, the book of Yehezkel also indicates how the dome looks like ice. And Jonathan, famous Jewish scholars that usually translates and comments the Torah, also confirms that it is made out of a very stiff ice, very, very strong ice. So imagine, you know, a dome that thick, made out of frozen stiff ice. Forget about, you know, leaving the earth for a while. It's like impossible to break, unless there are like mechanisms, I don't know, but for now nothing indicates such thing.
I know we have still not shattered that highest and hardest glass ceiling, but someday someone will, and hopefully sooner than we might think right now.
Now again, the book of Job is helping us to understand how the dome was in fact created, molded as a very strong mirror. And this is very important, because the words that are being used to describe the luminaries, you know, the sun and the moon being placed into the dome on the fourth day, are called meorot in Hebrew, which is luminary, but it also reflects the word marot, which means mirrors. Like they are acting, in fact, according to some game of reflections. Now, if we believe that there might exist a very complex system of reflection involving the sun and the moon and the stars and the dome, that might also give a credibility to that theory, that actually is more than a theory, because it's been kind of proven many times, that there are no satellites in outer space, of course, and that they are all in fact within the dome and using the dome for beaming, you know, informations, like using reflections. You understand? So that's just like a little point. Now it is funny to see that on the very tombstone of Werner von Braun, the Nazi criminal that was recycled into the Nazi director, is in fact carved the reference Psalm 19, which is the psalm that actually praises the dome as being the work of God. So this is kind of ironic to see that this is being mentioned on the very tombstone of the man that worked hard to pretend that there was no dome, and that you know, his space shuttles and rockets could, you know, just go through that space and reach the outer space, you know, as most people believe today. So again, this is a little message from outer life, not outer space.
And everything science has taught me and continues to teach me strengthens my belief in the continuity of our spiritual existence after death.
Okay, now the fact that the Earth is bigger than space. So this is a very hard image to accept, but when we analyze the text, we see that it's actually very possible, and it also makes sense, and I tell you how. First of all, we know that what composed the space, you know, stars and the sun and the moon and you know, planets, actually were placed within a dome above the Earth. So if it is based upon the earth and above the earth, that means that actually the earth acting as a base for this is bigger than space. This is a first approach we can have about this. Now in the book of Samuel it is written that when the earth erupted and screamed, the foundation of the skies trembled and cracked. And this is a very simple clue that tells us how, if the foundation of the skies are indeed upon earth, then the earth is bigger than the skies. Okay, now when God speaks to Abraham at a time called Abram, he clearly tells him that the land he shows him is going to give it to him and to his offspring. Now, in the same time, he takes him off outside. It is written, he took him on the outside and he showed him the stars. And he told him, look at the stars and try to count them if you can. And like this will be your offspring. So out of these two statements, you understand that if the land or the earth, because in Hebrew is the same word being used, Eretz, if the land or the earth that God's going to give to Abraham can hold an offspring as numerous, as big as the stars of the skies, so you can deduct that the land, the earth, is bigger than the skies, because it can hold what the sky holds. You understand? This is a way to deduct things from, in between the lines. Now that promise is omnipresent in the Torah and repeats itself all the time. And again with Moses, where God tells him that he's going to form their offspring as the stars of the skies, and then he's going to give them the earth or the land accordingly. That means that if that earth or that land can hold a people that is as numerous or as big as the stars in the skies, that means that the earth is bigger than the skies. This is how you can understand things from in between the allegories that these verses are about. Now check it out. The fact that God's honor, Kavod Hashem, in the Torah is only mentioned to fill up the earth or even the temple and never the skies, is also an indication that the earth is bigger than the skies, that the earth is bigger than space. Because if not, if the earth was insignificant into space, then God's honor, God's pride will fill up his entire creation, which will be at that point the entire space, the skies, and not the earth. But here, God's honor, God's pride fills up the earth, which means that the earth is his entire creation, and which means again that the earth is bigger than space. Earth includes space, just like a house includes its roof. Now it is interesting also to notice that the word rachok, which means far, is never employed to describe the sun, the moon, or the stars, which are indeed, as we saw, local, because they are within the dome. So you see that it confirmed by the fact that the word rachok is not never used to describe them as being far away. Sometimes lands or territories are being mentioned as being far away, but they only describe territories upon the earth, and never other planets in the skies or stars in the skies. And in that sense, it is very interesting to see that at one point the Torah is talking about the distant people, some people coming from far away, from very far away territory that is located at the limit of the skies. So for us, the limit of the skies can be up there, but since the skies do have their base, their foundations upon earth, so it is also interesting to understand that the limits of the skies are the limits of the sky's foundation that are to be found on earth. That means that at one point the Torah is talking about the people coming from the south, the farther away from where we are. That means from that southern limit, southern border, or maybe a little beyond it. We don't know, we have to check it out. So that's also very interesting. And that may be interesting because it might refer to possible territories beyond the ice walls, or at the limits of the ice walls that we don't know yet, or we knew that we forgot. So now the book of Job is helping us again, because it is mentioned over there that God looks to the end of the earth and he sees under all the skies. So if under all the skies he can see the limits of the earth and not all the limits of the earth, that means that the skies are smaller than the earth. Do you understand the little subtlety here? Now about the fact that there are no aliens in space, that there is no alien intelligence in space. So in the Torah, it's all over the place. It is written that God is one, God is alone, there is no one with him, and as it is said, ve'ein imo el nikar, that means that there is no with him alien gods. So that is a clear fact. Now this being said, many can doubt the Torah by saying, of course, the Torah is not going to admit there are aliens. God's never going to admit there are alien gods or people with him or before him or that helped him, because of course this is the book of God. And I understand, you can be entitled to say so, but you have to know a few things. First of all, when you study the Torah and those scriptures in Hebrew, and you see that all the words are very, very carefully chosen, all the numbers, all the allegories, all this can only come out from one superior mind, not different minds. This is the first thing that you can see, you can witness by studying all these books. Now when you look at the universe, it's the same thing. There is no evolution, there is no different hands that created everything. All comes right up from one single mind. It cannot come from two minds. We cannot develop that now, but this is what I wanted to share with you. This is one. Now the second thing is that in the Torah sometimes when you do not again understand Hebrew, you might be confused by seeing that at one point God says, let's create Adam to our likeness, in our image, like if he was speaking to someone else. And then also when he chose Adam from the Eden garden, he says, Adam was like one of us, knowing the good and bad. So again here you can have the impression that he's speaking to someone else, or to another God, or someone at his level. Now most rabbis are going to tell you, oh no, he's talking about himself, in a form of language like this, to a honorific form of language. That can be understood like it, but I do not agree. I believe that he's talking with somebody else and another person, but not a God at his level. And I tell you how I believe this, because it happened all the time. You see, God needs Moses to extract the people of Israel from Egypt. Why does he need Moses? Why don't he do it himself? Every time something has to be created on earth or to be done, God uses men, and usually a very high spiritual man, to act as his tool, his living tool to do so. Because you see, God has rules and he respects his rules, and there are many things that God cannot do. because he does respect his rules. So you can see God as so pure, so powerful, that if he was actually interacting directly with earth, everything will implode, because it's like putting a trillion volts into a cell phone, everything will melt around, So he has rules. He uses a prophet in order to speak to the prophet and to reach the people. So here again, in the creation, the name that is employed there, that is written there, is Elohim, not Hashem, Yod Kei Vav Kei. And Elohim in the Torah sometimes also refers to a man like Moses. Moses also is called Elohim in the Torah. When God tells Moses, you're going to be Elohim for Pharaoh, and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. So Elohim in the Torah can also indicate one of the names of God, which means actually Elohim means Lord. I am God, your Lord. But also can refer to a man. That means that in the creation I have no problem of seeing Elohim as a great man as Moses, reorganizing the matter under God's orders. Just like Moses did reorganize the people of Israel under God's orders as Ish Elohim, as an Elohim, as a Lord. So I have no problem in interpreting the fact that God speaks to his deputy, his number two, the guy that's going to act on earth, because he's on earth and he's going to do what God is telling him to do, acting as Elohim, as a great man that is a prophet, and is acting just like Moses will act later on. So this is for that. There's no God at God's level. There's no other God. But sometimes and very often there are prophets or deputies of God. Now sometimes in the Torah you can see that it is written about Nephilim or sons of Anak, and actually it does not refer to aliens from space, but from ancient nations that lived here upon earth. And sometimes members of these nations can outlive some disasters, and can be seen here in our generations, people that are very old and that come from ancient generations, ancient civilizations. This is possible. Not gonna go into this, but it is possible. In the Torah there are lots of people that lived like hundreds of years, even thousands of years, and I suspect also that today there might be people that still are living today among us and that belong to this ancient or civilization or generations. And this is not like magic, this is not like fantasy, it is science. Because actually natural death is nothing natural, because death was activated by mankind, by man, by Adam, who was immortal at the beginning. Adam was not supposed to die. So death somehow was created by man, and somehow is a disease, it's not something natural, and it can be controlled or repaired. And I believe that the Torah holds the secrets of death or the secret of eternal life, but this is not our subject for now. Now the fact that God's promise to give a land to Israel does indeed reflects the end of times, where the entire mankind will retrieve the earth that was stolen from it, can be seen all over the place in the Torah. Now the first thing we see about this is that God does indeed promise a land to Abraham and to his offspring, but never gives it to him. Same thing for Yitzhak, same thing for Yaakov, same thing for Moses, same thing for Israel, because even though Israel was given the land of Canaan, he never fully conquered it. He never fully was the master of this land. He struggled a lot for it, and at one point, at the time of David and Solomon, there was some kind of control, but even though there still was war with Pharaoh and everything. So actually we see that God's promise never went through. That means that God's promise actually talks about the future times. That means that if God tells Abraham, I will give you land, that means he will give him a land, and he will give to his offspring a land, but this refers to the end of times. Now there is one thing that confirms very strongly that fact, is that very first anagram that we talked about in the beginning of the Torah, when we see that Beyosher bara el et hayam et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. That means that in a plateau, God, called El then, created the sea, the skies and the earth. But if Yosher is a plateau, and if God is El, so the plateau of the Lord, the plateau of God in Hebrew, is called Yosher El, referring to Israel, which means that the land, the entire earth, is being referred as being Israel at the end of times. And it is actually known in Judaism that at the end of times people will grow up, people will understand, and the entire nations will become Israel, while Israel will become a nation of priests. They will become priests, then there will be Levites, and the entire world will become Israel, and then we'll be all unified, around God. This is, Jewish beliefs, of Jewish understanding of what's going to happen at the end. So somehow you see that Yosher El is the plateau of God, or the land of God, which was created right in the beginning. So this confirms that in fact the land that will be retrieved for the entire mankind, not just for the people of Israel, but for the entire mankind, will be a wide land, a fat land, a good land for everybody to live in peace, by recognizing that God is actually the mastermind of this whole creation, and this is what should happen at the end of times. So this is being confirmed by this. Now, if you understand that this is going to be the outcome for mankind, you also understand that it is not going to happen without a fight. And this is one of the reasons why you see that in the Torah, the sky and the earth have an army. Like it is written in Genesis, that the skies and the earth were completed, were finished, along with their army. Because an army is made for war. And actually all those lies about earth and the skies, about mankind being nothing, in the universe, that the entire creation was the fruit of some, explosion, some luck, and that we are nothing in the world, that we evolved from animals, and that we evolved through a technological advancement coming from, aliens from space, and all that bullshit. This represents war, acts of war against God, because you can only fight God by fighting His creation. And this is why in the Torah it is said that the skies and the earth do have an army. That means elements to prove all these accusations wrong. Okay, let me help you to explain you something. It might sound a little heavy, but you're going to see that it's important. You see, God is perfect, but it doesn't mean He doesn't have any needs. And in fact, when you think about it, God, who is full of love, full of understanding, full of wisdom, full of knowledge, needs some recipients in order to pour Himself into it, in order to share, to give all this. So, in order for God to share all He has and to give all He has, He creates a world where He can pour all that He has into it. And this is God's need. to give. God is one, and God has one need. It is to give. And God is perfect because He fulfills His own need. He creates the perfect world for Him to pour Himself into it, to give everything He has, all the knowledge, all the wisdom He has into it. Now, if you understand this, you understand that the only way for people to fight God is actually to fight His own creation, to corrupt the world so much up to the point that God will not be able to pour Himself into it anymore, and that will draw a God to destroy His own creation. They already succeeded, in the time of the flood, and before that. It is said in Judaism that God created lots of worlds and destroyed them. So at one point, to fight God is to fight His own creation, and to bring His entire nations of people to reject Him, or to believe He does not exist, and even to bring them to embrace their own self-destruction, to make them so stupid, so ignorant, that they're gonna just self-destruct, with joy. So that's the fight we are living. It's not about money, it's not about control, it's about fighting God. Now, all these things, all these lies about the shape of the earth, about the fact that the earth is not flat, it is a globe, spinning globe, and spinning around a far away sun, and running into space, and an earth that is insignificant, in the space, and with the people that are nothing, just like dust in the space, and that all this was created just like this, out of an explosion, and that actually we evolved out of animals, out of fishes or whatever, apes. All these are acts of war against God. Now you understand why in the Torah it is written many times that the earth and the skies have an army. Like it is written in the book of Genesis in the beginning that the skies and the earth were finished along with their army. An army is made for war. That means that God's creation also has an army of facts that, if you understand them, can destroy all these attacks against His creation, just like as we do today. So again, we're in the middle of a big war. The people that are spending trillions of dollars to make believe that space shuttles can go to Mars and all this, they don't do it just like this. They don't spend so much money and efforts for nothing. This is a very, very serious war. So just to tell you that flat Earth theory, that flat Earth idea, is not just like some kind of sickness or conspiracy madness, but it's the real deal. This is not about just the shape of the earth, it's about a war, and we are right in the middle of that war, and you don't even know to what points are we involved into that war and how important it is. So this being said, I just want to finish that video with sharing with you something I believe I understood also, that I uncovered to that investigation. And this thing is in fact that all these lies about the shape of the earth and the world and all that can be broken down to 10 main lies, and actually those 10 main lies do match each one a violation of each of the 10 commandments. And this is what I want to show you now. So the first lie about the earth is saying that the earth is a globe. And this lie is a direct violation of the 9th commandment, you shall not bear false witnesses, because by pretending that the earth is a sphere, so you have NASA forging images, videos, and all this reflects false witnesses against the truth, against the fact that the earth is flat. Okay, now the second lie is saying that the earth is spinning non-stop. And this is a violation of the 4th commandment. Because when you analyze the Torah, you see that the creation took like 6 days, and the 7th day God rested. But so did the earth. Because on the 7th day it is not written, and there was an evening and there was a morning, 7th day. And you have to understand that since that day, the earth has been still. So the earth is on a resting mode, on Shabbat mode, for like thousands of years. And by saying it is spinning all the time is indeed a violation of the 4th commandment, saying to remember the day of Shabbat, which you don't if you believe that the earth is always spinning, and that it is not still and quiet, like it is said in the Torah, sitting, your Shabbat, reflecting Shabbat. Now the third lie is to say that the universe is much bigger than what it is in reality, that there are space, and that the sun is a very big ball of fire very far away from Earth. And in fact, most people will tend to believe that this actually amplifies God's creation. That is, whoa, God's creation is so huge, so big. And this lie is actually a very vicious lie that violates the 3rd commandment, not to use the name of God in vain, not to put God's name on something that does not exist, on emptiness, to create a lie, to fight God and fight His creation by making people believe that it is actually, God's creation and God's greatness. You understand? Now the 4th lie is saying that the earth and the sun and the moon, the planets, are like traveling very fast in a huge universe, and this is a direct violation of the 10th commandment. Do not covet, because by enforcing the idea that there is a space where we can travel, and there are maybe other planets and other lands, so that somehow ignites the will in people to conquer more and more land, and to go and abandon the earth, and to seek other earths and other places. You understand? To push people to want what they don't have, what is not theirs to have. Now the 5th lie is saying that there is a South Pole, when actually the South Pole is but a limit behind which there are other territories. So this is a violation of the 8th commandment, do not steal, because one of the goals in having people believe that there are no lands, there are no more lands, it's just like, the earth is a globe and there's a South Pole and there's nothing to see there, just ice, is in order to steal from people, not to let them understand that there are more lands and probably more wealth to be taken, to be given and shared with people beyond this artificial frontier that they create. Now the 6th lie is making people believe that gravity holds everything together, and this is a direct violation to the 5th commandment. Now the 5th commandment refers to honoring your father and your mother. Now in the Torah it does not speak about really your father and your mother, because respecting and honoring your father and your mother is usually something that is natural among human beings, and you don't need like a commandment of God to do something so fundamental, so natural. Now there is a deeper meaning, and that makes more sense, is that in fact your father and your mother in the Torah refers to God, Yod Kei Vav Kei, Hashem, and Elohim. You can see in the Torah that God is also called the Father for mankind, and that Moses, a man of God, a deputy of God, is often called Elohim in the Torah. So this being said, if you understand that the earth was created by the association of God ordering to his servants to interact and to reorganize the earth, so somehow this can be imaged, this can be pictured as the earth being actually the baby of both God and Elohim. That means that in fact, by saying that an invisible force holds everything together, you in fact despise God's work and his deputy's work and Elohim's work, and somehow you do not honor your father and your mother. So the seventh lie is about making people believe that the earth is open to outer space. And this is a direct violation of the second commandment, because the second commandment is about not creating idols and to worship to them, not to create image from the skies, from the earth, from the sea, and then to worship them. That means do not worship the thing that you create. And by making people believe that the earth is open to outer space, then you have to make them believe that you have the technology to build like huge space shuttles and rockets to travel into space. And then you're going to bring people to believe more in man's technology more than into God. That means that you're going to deviate somehow people to worship fake idols that you created that don't go nowhere, in order to deviate their faith from believing in God into believing into those false entities, those false idols that you created. So this is indeed about violating the second commandment. Now the eighth lie is about making people believe they are nothing. Making people believe that we are nothing as a planet because the space is so huge that we are insignificant, and therefore even more insignificant as individual, as people. And this is somehow a violation of the sixth commandment. You should not murder. Because somehow this is killing with premeditation. This is murdering the very nature of human beings, because the reality is that we are giants. We are very important. Each individual has a wealth, has a riches, has is a worth that's unbelievable. And by making them believe the contrary is somehow murdering them. Let them believe that they exist for nothing and there is no goal in their existence. Now the lie number 9 and number 10 merge together, because by saying that there are aliens in space, or that came from space at one point, and that these aliens are the superior intelligence that allowed us to progress or to give us technology or to explain whatever cannot be explained in our history, in our on Earth or whatever, in our evolution. So this is a direct violation of not only the first commandment but also the seventh commandment, because the first commandment clearly states that God is the one that took us out of bondage and gave us freedom, the notions of freedom, and not anybody else. And also by the fact that if you believe that there is somebody else at his level, at God's level, that allowed, us to progress, or that in fact did what God actually did. So it is seen as adultery. You are betraying God, because you see, when mankind and God are together, there is like an harmony, like in a couple. And as soon as you betray God and you say, oh, God didn't do that, there's another God I believe that lived there, or that did that. So it is adultery. It's a form of adultery. So this is for the last two lies, number 9 and number 10. Now, in conclusion, what I want to tell you is that even though what I told you so far might be a little hard to digest, might be a little heavy, you're going to see that it makes sense. And at the end, you're going to see that it's going to help you understand a great many things. Now, this being said, my main message here is to tell you how important is that subject of the flat earth. How important is that fight around understanding the shape of the earth and its mechanisms? Because here we are not talking just about the shape of the earth, we are talking about a war. And it is such an important war that you can see how our enemies in that war are investing so much into it. And this is a clear sign that confirms that this is very important. Those guys will never invest so much into something if it was not very important, or maybe even the most important thing for them at that point. And I prove you that it is very important, because you see, all that you see on TV, Russia against America, Ukraine, all this, China against this, you see that they are all like, enemies, and this is the enemy of this. But you know what? When it comes to like space research, they all agree. All the space agencies in the world all agree. Russia knows that, all this is like lies, that they never went out in outer space. Nevertheless, they're lying along with the Americans. They agree on that particular lie. They're all united around that lie. This is to tell you how important is that fight. This is all a game, what you see. The fight is the fight against God. The real war is the war against God.
Now we're going to have the Space Force, because it's a whole...
And trying to understand the very mechanisms of the earth and the skies places you right in the middle of that war.
Belief is easy. Belief takes no effort. Knowing takes time and critical thought. And once you know that you are at the center of creation, that you are way more powerful than they led you to believe, then things change.